I want to finish up from where we were last hour on how our country is just being taken apart piece by piece. And they're telling you they're doing it. They're telling you what the goal is, but they always deny it, even though it's all out in papers and it's all out on websites, their websites. They won't. They'll always say that's a conspiracy theorist, but we're now seeing these conspiracy theory come true. And it's been bothering me the last couple of days, and quite honestly, I'm so lazy. I didn't grab Gibbons and look it up. But if I remember right, wasn't the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, didn't it really start to come down once they opened the gate to the gates to the mongrels or the muskrats or the Haitians or whoever they let in? I know this. Wasn't that the beginning and the end? They let everybody in, and then they made everybody a Roman citizen, and then citizenship didn't mean anything.
Yeah, it sounds familiar, but I'm no expert on this particular.
That's where I was too.
Yeah,
and so I decided to call somebody who actually knows because he's smart. Spencer Klavan, Claremont Review of Books associate editor and author of Light of the Mind, Light of the World. Spencer, how are you, man?
I'm doing very well, Glenn. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Again, I just have to say, talk down to me just a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit. Am I right on that? I'm trying to remember one of the last straws. I thought it was opening up the gates and making everybody citizens.
Okay, so not only are you right about this, you actually don't even need somebody like Gibbon to prove your point. This is something that basically everybody, even the most liberal scholars of the Roman Empire and its history, nobody can deny that the Roman Empire fell apart because it lost its borders. Its borders were effectively dissolved by tyrants, and especially by the guy I think you're probably thinking of as Caracalla, who was emperor.
Caracalla.
And in 212 AD, the Edict of Caracalla made everybody a citizen. And this is the guy, one of the notorious tyrants of history, compared during the French Revolution to Louis XVI. Gibbon calls him the common enemy of mankind. So that'll tell you a little bit about the sorts of people that want to dilute the concept of citizenship. They always make themselves out to be very magnanimous and generous and kind, whereas, in fact, there's always something in it for them, and that was no different in Rome.
So, Spencer, if everybody knows this, what possibly could be the reason to do this all across the Western world?
Well, I think, like with everything, you have to look for elite interests. In Rome, the problem of citizenship is something they had going back even before the empire to the days of the Republic. And right from the jump there, when the Republic started to fall apart, it was because there wasn't enough land to go around. The citizens and those who fought in the army were supposed to get a certain amount of land that they could cultivate as private property. But while they were away at war, the wealthy and the elites effectively conspired to do an end run around the law. Why? So that they could have cheap labor and vast tracts of land. Caracalla, there are different theories about why he did what he did, but you don't have to look around too far for reasons why. In fact, there are almost too many reasons why. He would have been able to levy taxes on these new citizens. He could have conscripted them into the army. And all of this came at the expense, and this is important, it came at the expense of the people who were already Roman citizens. Our word citizen comes from the Greek word kiwis, and so does our word city. So this is a local thing originally designed for specific people who get particular rights, yes, things that they can do, like vote in elections, but also they get responsibilities. You have to contribute to society and be committed and devoted to the idea of Rome, the project of Rome. Once that starts to fall apart, you basically just have the rich and the strong trying to give out benefits packages, essentially, goodie bags, to whomever they can get on their side so that they can grow their military and sustain the imperial machine. And I think a lot of that we can see going on as well with some of our leaders, unfortunately.
So, I mean, you're a historian. You love history. You study history. How is this time period right now, the point where we're at right now, before this election, how is this going to be looked at by historians?
It's always hard to write history in the present tense, they say, but if you put a gun to my head and I had to make a guess, I would say this is going to be one of those moments where people look back and they either say, how could they possibly have let it all go? What went wrong? What drove them so insane? And there will be studies written of how we were led up to this point gradually over time.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll look back and we'll say this was a crisis like the ones that Rome had faced, like others had faced in the past, and we pulled back from the brink. It's not too late, despite the dire situation. It's not too late to do that. We're not at Edict of Caracalla territory just yet, although that's certainly what the open borders crowd and the Kamala Harrises and the Joe Bidens of the world would like. But it's not yet the case that just anybody under American influence is an American citizen with all the rights and privileges that
It's darn close.
affords.
We're moving in that direction rapidly.
Yeah, you're right about that. So I think we're at a major crossroads with this election.
So now I'm going to ask you to predict, and you feel free to back out and say, I didn't sign up for this, dude. What do you see coming? What does history teach you that is most likely coming? Because I honestly, I can think of a million ways this falls apart.
Right.
I have a hard time finding that very narrow path, especially without God, of where it comes together and we heal.
I mean, it's really important that you mentioned God, I think, and the Christian God specifically, whom the Romans, until later on in their history, did not worship, because that is something that makes us distinctive. And you know, Glenn, you've asked me this question a couple times. Are there any examples of people that pulled out of these kinds of crises? And it's hard because, in fact, when you end the concept of citizenship, when you destroy your borders, you have destroyed your country by definition. So it's not like we're not flirting with the sorts of things that bring republics and indeed empires down. But I will say that whereas I can't think of an example from history of a civilization that wound back the clock, that undid these problems, it is possible in history to correct course and move forward in the world that we live in, in a better direction. And I think for us as Americans and as a nation that was founded on Judeo-Christian principles, the key to that is our belief in the universal creation of man in the image of God. Now, that might sound a little ironic since I'm talking about closing down our borders and taking care of our citizens, and the open borders crowd likes to make use of Christian slogans to pretend that they're loving their neighbors and they're loving everybody. But we're limited human beings, and the question in front of us is not how do we extend every benefit to the whole world. It's not in our power. The question is how do we love one another as American citizens? And our superpower in this that the Romans did not have is racial assimilation. If we're able to get a grip on our border, if we do well in this election and other elections going forward, then we can accommodate some of the things that have gone down the pike and have a better track record than any country in history at course correcting and recalibrating with exactly these sorts of issues. But the first thing is we have to understand what we're about. And that is not the world and not humanity in general, but America and the humans who live here.
What book are you writing right now?
I've just finished a book, actually, that's coming out in October called, you mentioned it, Light of the Mind, Light of the World, which I'm really excited for people to read. It comes out in October. And this is a story about the history of science told from a religious perspective, because I think people have a sense that there's just no way you can be a smart, rational person who believes in science and also believes in God. And what I'm saying in this book is not only is that wrong, it's also really outdated, and that a sophisticated modern understanding of where science comes from and where it's going points us back to the truths of Scripture and the God of the Bible. So that's the book, and it'll be out in October.
Fantastic. Pre-order it now, Light of the Mind, Light of the World. Do me a favor. Will you send that to me? Because I want to have you on, but I want to be able to have read it
yes.
Before
Absolutely.
I talk to you, so we can have an intelligent conversation on it. Spencer, thank you so much. Say hi to your dad for me.
It's a pleasure.
Spencer,
Thanks, Glenn. Will do.
Yeah, Spencer Klavan, Andrew Klavan's son, and boy, if Andrew ever feels like, I don't know if I did a good job as a dad, sit and talk to Spence for a while. It's pretty amazing.